Every superhero movie needs a good super villain, someone who lasts up until the very last fight scene, and it seems like they're going to win, but in the end, by some plot twist, the superhero wins and everyone goes home happily ever after. When it comes to lenses, the superhero, at least in Sony's lineup, is the G Master series of lenses. Sony established this lineup back in 2016, and I think when they set it up, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing they were aiming squarely at Sigma's art line of lenses because the Sigma art line was established back in 2012 and it represented the best of the best from Sigma. And really, over the last couple of years, it's just been a dogfight where Sony will come out with a great lens, Sigma will come out with a better lens, Sony will come out with an even better lens, and they go back and forth. And here we are today with the brand new 50mm F1.4 DGDN from Sigma. I think for the money, if you have a Sony full-frame mirrorless camera, you cannot beat the Art series of lenses from Sigma. I own the 85mm, which is right over here, and I think that around $1,000, this is the absolute best lens that you can buy in terms of optical sharpness and performance. There's nothing that I've tested that comes close to what you get bang for buck with the 85mm f1.4, but this 50mm might be even better. So let's start by seeing how it comes packaged. It comes in a white box with a zippered carrying case inside, some manuals, and the lens itself. Plastic front and rear lens caps, and a nicely done plastic lens hood. The lens feels incredibly solid. I have to say this, when it comes to build quality, I don't think anyone beats Sigma art lenses. Even Sony's own G Master lenses don't feel quite as refined and premium as this lens does. There are nice lines and design elements with different finishes that make this lens a spectacle. This new 50mm is a little bit larger than the 85mm that I have, about a centimeter longer, and it comes in at 660 grams. One of the first things that I noticed about this lens is that there is a floating element inside. You can kind of hear it as you rotate it like this. Reminds me of the original APS-C Sigma lenses of old, but I've noticed that this is happening with a lot of new Sony lenses as well. I think it has to do with the autofocusing system inside, which I will mention here in a little bit. Starting at the rear, there is an all-metal lens mount with electronic connections, a full-frame cutout, and weather sealing. In fact, this lens is dust and splash resistant. I count 6 rubber gaskets in this diagram, and the buttons and switches are also sealed. 023 here indicates this is a 2023 lens release. Minimum focus distance is 0.45 meters, and this lens is made in Japan. There is an aperture ring that is nice and clicky. It feels and sounds great, although if you prefer, you can switch the click off right here. In addition, there is another switch that locks out the auto aperture setting, or even locks the auto aperture into place, which is a nice addition. Above the aperture ring, there is a little Sigma logo, the lens specs, and an A for art. Autofocus and manual focus switch here, and an autofocus lock button round out the switches on this lens. The focus ring is up next. It's large, grippy, and exceptionally smooth, although it is not mechanical, it's all electronic. Around the front, there is a nice convex front lens element and no writing here. Nice and clean design. This lens features a 72mm front filter thread and looks great mounted on my A7C with the lens hood. Inside, there are 14 elements in 11 groups and an 11 rounded blade diaphragm. So you might be thinking, but Arthur, there's already a 50mm f1.4 art lens from Sigma, the DG HSM, and you are right, because that lens came out almost 10 years ago. It's been around for a while, and when it comes to lenses from Sigma, you have to pay attention to all of the letters because they stand for different things. So DG is full frame, DN is designed for mirrorless, and HSM on the old lens stands for hypersonic motor, which is the old style of autofocus. So let me just summarize it this way. This is an all-new designed lens that is optimized for the short flange distance of mirrorless cameras. This means that it's a smaller lens. Optically, Sigma has focused on reducing coma flare, cleaning up the bokeh, improving sharpness edge to edge, and speeding up autofocus. This is the first art lens that features Sigma's new HLA, or high response linear actuator autofocus driver, which we first saw just a few weeks ago in the Sigma 60 to 600mm 50mm lens, and this simply is a linear autofocus motor similar to what Sony is using in their top-of-the-line lenses. It's fast, silent, and has impressive tracking performance. But enough talking about it. This is what you can get with this lens and my Sony a7C. I took it out the other day with my wife. All of these shots are uncorrected, straight out of the camera, ready, set, go. Alright, so the performance is excellent as you would expect from an art lens, and all of those shots were done wide open at f1.4, which is truly remarkable. This lens is razor sharp at f1.4. In fact, just for fun, I decided to do a quick comparison between this 50mm and the 85mm that I already own, and there is nothing between them. Both in the center and in the corners, the lenses are equally sharp. If I try the same with a portrait of my wife, there is nothing that separates these two lenses in terms of sharpness. But the additional background blur because of the focal length and the distance to the subject on the 85mm is noticeable. So this is a very sharp lens, as sharp as the sharpest lens that I know for Sony full-frame mirrorless. But that's only half the story because the autofocusing system on this lens truly is impressive. It was good on the 60-600, but it's a different animal on this 50mm. It's lightning quick, very accurate, silent, but beyond that, once you start shooting video, you get performance that rivals any good modern Sony lens. The tracking is very good. Just take a look at how smooth it follows and tracks my son's eyes as he drives towards the camera. This is done on my Sony FX30, by the way. Even when you have a subject walking toward you and then walking away and you can no longer see the face, the camera and lens do an excellent job of tracking. And this really is the big news with this lens. Yes, it's a 50mm that's very refined, that's been refined from a design from 10 years ago, with an all-new design, but once they stuck that HLA autofocusing motor in this lens, it took it up a level that Sigma lenses really haven't touched before. You see, the problem with Sigma lenses has always been that optically they are brilliant, they perform as good if not better than their Sony counterparts, but they always lagged in autofocus. Most of the time it was speed, oftentimes it was also accuracy. With this new lens and this new autofocusing system, no longer can you say only a Sony lens can autofocus as quick and track as accurately. This lens goes as far as to be compatible with AF Assist or Autofocus Assist on Sony E-mounts. So when you switch over to manual focus, the camera automatically zooms in to help you focus as you turn the focus ring. It's a lens that you can confidently use for photography and video work with almost no compromises, and the results speak for themselves. The colors are excellent, contrast is strong, even wide open. The bokeh is smooth and creamy and not distracting. Flaring is well controlled, as is chromatic aberration. It's still there though. Don't think that they completely got rid of it. You can still see some teal and purple fringing in certain situations. Vignetting is also well controlled, as is barrel distortion, which is really a non-issue. Optically, I'd say this lens is near perfection. And you have to remember that this 50mm is a very important lens for Sigma. In general, 50mm lenses, according to Sony and many other sources, are the #1 most popular focal length for primes. That's why there are so many of them out there. I think right now Sony has 4 in their lineup. varying from macro to the G Master f1.2. Sony recently released the 50mm f1.2 G Master, and for $2,000, it's a very popular and very well-reviewed lens, but it's $2,000. And as good as it is, it's a tough bill to pay, which is why when you look at this Sigma, which I would guess performs very similarly, although you do lose about half a stop of light gathering ability, f1.4 versus f1.2. But the fact that you can get this lens later on this month for a price of $849 US, that's pretty impressive. I'll be honest, I am tempted to even replace my 85mm art with this lens simply for the autofocus improvements alone. So why would someone still get a Sony lens? Well, Sony's playing an interesting game right now. They are refining their lenses and focusing a lot on video features. Specifically, they've been recently focusing on their breathing compensation features, which effectively eliminate focus breathing. That is something that is only available on native Sony lenses. When you look at the Sigma, it does have quite a bit of focus breathing. That's the major advantage with Sony lenses that I see. But if I were in the market for a 50mm prime and I was looking at the Sony G Master for $2,000 or this thing for $849, I would pick this thing up in a heartbeat and use the leftover $1,150 to buy another lens or another 2 lenses. And you can't really argue the fact that the Sony lens is better at autofocusing because this is right up there. It's just as good in my opinion. This really does make me excited for what is to come. I think Sigma should roll out this autofocus motor in all of their other lenses, even the APS-C ones. I'd love to see an update to the Sigma 16mm with this autofocus motor in it. So that is going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Check out the links in the description below. You can read more about this lens and also pre-order it there. Let me know what your thoughts are on this lens. Do you own any art lenses? Are you planning on getting any of them? Always curious to read your guys' comments. Thank you guys so much for all of your likes, all of your comments, and your support. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.